Garden in 1956, all of them shot. Were they World War II victims? Or something else? Noel Corbeau, who took care of Marie Denarnaud after her paralyzing stroke, and who may have learned of something from her incoherent dying whispers, was killed in a horrendous car crash in 1953 that some suspect was not an accident. Saunier's heart attack in 1917 came on the suspicious date of January 17th, St. Anthony's Day, and there are hints that the coffin had been ordered in advance. A courier who carried the secret dossiers found by Saunier, Fakhr el-Islam, was found dead on train tracks just outside of Milan, East Germany, in 1967. There are many more tantalizing things about Rennes-le-Château. According to one researcher, it may be laid out in the shape of a ship of the dead with a helmeted warrior born to sea. Yet another thinks that the Paris meridian may have been drawn so that it quite deliberately passes, lay fashion, straight through Rennes-le-Château, Arcs, and Conques. Still others see links between the site and Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland or Shugborough Hall in Staffordshire, England. It is known that Saunier took his parchments to the Abbé Bile, of the seminary of St. Sulpice, which was where the abbé's nephew Emile Hoffet launched the Catholic Modernist rebellion which would eventually land modernist works on the Vatican's banned list. St. Sulpice's feast day, January 17th, is the date of Saunier's sudden stroke. He was the Bishop of Bourges, on the Paris meridian, and in his seminary is an obelisk with the copper line marking the exact point of the alignment. Codes, ciphers, and scripts. Perhaps the most enigmatic elements mentioned in the text as decoded by Lionel Fanthorpe is the phrase, "blue apples at noon." The code in the parchments is only decipherable through the use of the knight's tour, a logic puzzle wherein one jumps a knight to every square on a chessboard, once and only once. It is a puzzle which has only one solution, as does the code, clearly. But the use of chessboard imagery at Rennes-le-Château is striking. Clearly, to some degree, the puzzle lies in the layout of the redesign of Saunier's church, and his other building projects. The village parish church had been dedicated to the Magdalene in 1059. During the Restoration, he found the mysterious parchment, supposedly, in a hollow Visigothic pillar underneath the altar stone. A statue of the demon Asmodeus guards near the door. The plaques depicting the stations of the cross contain bizarre inconsistencies. One shows a child swathed in Scottish plaid. Another has Pontius Pilate wearing a veil. Saint Joseph and Mary are each depicted holding a Christ child, as if to allude to the old legend that Christ had a twin. Other statues are of rather esoteric saints and unusual postures, street rock displays. His wounded thigh, like the Grail King and Fortis, Saint Anthony the Hermit holds a closed book. St. Germain releases a bevy of roses from her apron, and the Magdalene is shown holding a vase. Saunier's library and study, the Tour Magdala, is placed precariously over a precipitous chasm at a place where one would be foolish to build such a permanent structure, unless there are many writers connected with the Rennes mystery. It might be productive to re-examine their works with a new eye for such hidden codes. One, the novelist Victor Hugo, and another, the playwright, Jean Cocteau, are said to have presided over the Priory. But other writers appear to be strongly connected to the mystery. Three in particular are the so-called Inklings, fantasy writer J.R.R. Tolkien, screenplay writer C.S. Lewis, and Charles Williams. Lionel Fanthorpe also suspects that Isaac Asimov, Jules Verne, George MacDonald, and Umberto Eco may somehow have provided clues to the mystery in their books. Sir Walter Raleigh, who is now thought to have been involved in an esoteric body known as the School of Night, whose motto was that inspiration comes to the philosopher at night, when nature and the rest of humanity sleeps, may have also been part of the Order of Sion. The theme of Arcadia was prominent in Elizabethan literature, and it appears in the works of writers such as Edmund Spenser, Sir Philip Sidney, and even Shakespeare, for whom the word was synonymous with the Golden Age. Through the historical detective work of Francis Yeats, we now know that this era was a time when many Rosicrucian ideas were moving to the continent, and esoteric thinkers were confluencing around Frederick, Elector of the Palatinate of Bohemia, as the figure who would usher in the reforms of church and state many expected. The once and future king. Perhaps the Merovingians' most unusual chronicler is Gerard de Sede, who claims the fabulous race descends from extraterrestrials from Sirius, and who points out that at their stronghold in Stenay, also known as Satanicum, frogs frequently fall from the sky. Up until recently, little was known about these long-haired kings, as they inhabited that historical epoch derided as the Dark Ages. The founder of the royal line, Merovich, was said to be of two fathers. His mother, already pregnant by King Clodio, was seduced while swimming in the ocean by a queenator, whatever that was, and Merovich was formed somehow by the commingling of Frankish blood and that of the mysterious aquatic creature. Like the Nazairians of old, the Merovingian monarchs never cut their hair and bore a distinctive birthmark said to be a red cross over the shoulder blades. Their robes were fringed with tassels which were said to carry magical curative powers. They were known as occult adepts, and in one Merovingian tomb was found such items as a golden bull's head, a crystal ball, and several golden miniature bees. Strangely, many skulls of these monarchs appear to have been ritually incised, that is, trepanned. The Sicambrians, ancestors of the Franks, were known as the people of the bear for their worship of the bear goddess Arduina. The word Arcadia comes from Arcas, patron god of that area of Greece, the son of the nymph Callisto, sister of the huntress Artemis. Callisto's constellation is also known to many as Ursa Major, the Great Bear. The name Arthur comes from the Celtic Arth, related to Ursus, namely bear. In legend, the Merovingians were said to be descended from the Trojans, and Homer reports that Troy was founded by a colony of Arcadians. The poor documents claim that the Arcadians were descended from Benjamites driven out of Palestine by their fellow Israelites for idolatry. Arcadia was also known as the source of the river Alpheus, the underground stream which figures so prominently in Coleridge's poetry and in esoteric literature. The Merovingians were sacred kings who reigned but did not rule, leaving the secular governing function to chancellors known as the mayors of the palace. It was one of these mayors, Pepin the Fat, who founded the dynasty that came to supplant them, the Carolinians. One of the great Merovingian kings, Clovis, struck a deal with the newly nascent Roman Church. He would subdue their enemies, the Arian Visigoths and the pagan Lombards, in return for baptism into the faith and recognition of his right to rule a new Roman Empire as Novus Constantinus. Yet one of his descendants, Dagobert II, was murdered by a lance pierced through his eye, or poison poured in the ear, accounts vary. At the orders of Pepin, the church endorsed the assassination, flatly betrayed its pact with Clovis, and, in turn, recognized the family of usurpers as legitimate, culminating with the crowning of Charlemagne as Holy Roman Emperor. It was thought that the Merovingian lineage was extinguished. In any case, it was excised from the history books. But there is some evidence that Dagobert's son, Sigebert IV, survived and that a Merovingian principality continued to be ruled in Septimania by Guillaume de Gelon, a descendant aunt ancestor of Godefroy de Bouillon. If the documents are to be believed, the Merovingian lineage persists to this day, largely due to efforts to preserve it through intermarriage. The significance of such alliances is the key. Dagobert married the daughter of the Visigothic Count of Rhazes, giving his descendants hereditary title to the lands surrounding Rennes-le-Château. The Archcabal du Notre Dame du Sion, or Priory of Sion, is said to be the cabal behind many of the events that occurred at Rennes-le-Château. According to the Pr's own documents, its history is long and convoluted. Its earliest roots are in some sort of Hermetic or Gnostic society led by a man named Ormus. This individual is said to have reconciled paganism and Christianity. The story of Sion only comes into focus in the Middle Ages. In 1070, a group of monks from Calabria, Italy, led by one Prince Ursus, founded the Abbey of Orval in France near Stenay, in the Ardennes. These monks are said to have formed the basis for the Order de Sion, into which they were folded in 1099 by Godefroy de Bouillon. For about 100 years, the Order of the Temple, Knights Templar, and Sion were apparently unified under one leadership, though they were said to have separated at the cutting of the Albigenses in 1188. The Templar order was then destroyed by King Philippe le Bel of France. In 1307, Sion appears to have been at the nexus of two French anti-monarchical movements, the Compagnie du Street Sacrament of the 17th century, acting on behalf of the Guise-Lorraine families, and the Fronde of the 18th, as well as behind an attempt to make the Habsburgs emperors of all Europe in the 19th, the Haran du Val d'Or. It appears that there are vast connections between Sion and numerous social-cultural strata in European thought: Rosicrucianism, Freemasonry, Arthurian and Grail legends, Arcadianism, Catharism, chivalry, etc. Yet this mysterious secret society brought itself to light in 1956 and is listed with the French Directory of Organizations under the subtitle Chivalry of Catholic Rules and Institutions of the Independent and Traditionalist Union, which in French abbreviates to Circuit, the name of the magazine distributed internally among members. Depending on what statutes one considers, Sion either has 9,841 members in 9 grades, or 1,093 members in 7, with the supreme member, the Not Honor or Grand Master of the Order being, till 1963, Jean Cocteau. While it is believed the head has been Pierre Planter de Streetclair up until recent times, he claims to have left that post in 1984, so it is not clear who runs the organization at this time. But whoever he is, he has had illustrious predecessors: Jacques de Molay, Leonardo da Vinci, Isaac Newton, and Claude Debussy, among others. Planter, in any case, seems to have enjoyed the ear of many influential persons in contemporary French politics: de Gaulle, Marcel Lefebvre, François Ducaude-Bourzet, André Malraux, and Alain Poher, and others, many of whom appear to know him from his efforts with resistance during the Vichy occupation. Despite its registry, however, the organization remains untraceable, its given address and number leading to dead ends, which might lead one to wonder why the government never bothered to verify the information. Some interesting things have come to light about the PRO recently. One is that the Swiss Grand Lodge Alpina, GLA, the highest body of Swiss Freemasonry, akin to the Grand Lodge of England, may have been the recruiting body for the PRO. But the GLA is also said by some to be the meeting place of the Gnomes of Zurich. The name comes from former British Prime Minister Harold Wilson, who are said to be the power elite of Swiss bankers and international financiers. The Gnomes are supposed to be like the exclusive members of Bohemian Grove in California, a group of richer-than-rich paparazzi who gather each year to burn effigies of care, presumably representing concern for the poor. The GLA is also said by David Yallop to be the body which controlled the P2 Masonic Lodge in Italy.